long, long time ago, there was a volcano living all alone in the middle of the sea. This week's video is titled Kitty, but it's not really about Kitty. It was just a great title, but it's partly because Kitty played a big part in my life at this point. So I was working at I was working at Cigar Lifestyles, had moved back to Hudson, and Jabber had, considered running for state assembly. And I come home one afternoon and he says, I got a call and Kitty wants to meet with me for lunch. And so he sat with Kitty and he came back and he said, I don't think I'm running for assembly. I think I'm running Kitty's campaign for assembly. And so Jabber was the campaign manager for Kitty Rhodes' state assembly campaign race in 1998 when Sheila Harsdorf retired. And so because Jabber was going to be the campaign manager and I had a background in marketing communications and I had the software, I actually did the many of the campaign pieces that we produced for the election. And in the fall of '98, then Kitty actually won and was our new state assemblywoman. And her campaign was run out of our townhome in Hudson, Wisconsin. One of the things that happened during this period was that I had been working at, as I said, Cigar Lifestyles, and then I was terminated. Kitty had worked as the president, I believe is the title, of the Chamber of Commerce. It was a multi-city chamber on the eastern side of St. Paul, and I think it was called the Metro Chamber of Commerce, or East Metro, something like that. In any case, I'll throw it up here if it's important. And that included, by the way, 3M in our things. So Kitty, because she was running for state assembly, was taking less time at her job running the Chamber of Commerce, and on top of that, she had lost her office manager. And so, when I was let go, it just kind of conveniently worked out that I went to work at the Chamber of Commerce in the East Metro over in Roseville for a period as the office manager, and had some, very interesting experiences about how that works and what they do and the services that they provide. And one of the things that I realized very quickly was that a lot of this job just meant manning the phones, and the phones weren't very busy. And so one day I had decided, I think in part because we had been considering having kids, but I think the other side of that is that I truly just wondered if it would happen. I went on some websites for adoptees who were trying to find their mothers or fathers. And so I went onto a couple of websites and I posted my information. And when the information went out to the internet, I just kind of let it be. I mean, I did the searches, but I didn't find anything. And then that fall, I was out at a meeting for the 3rd District down, I think, in Toma. And while I was gone, my wife got a phone call, a very strange phone call. And the person on the phone said, hey, is Bob there? One, is Bob there, of course? And no, Bob wasn't there. So she said, can I help, can I help you? Is there something? She said, no, I'm just trying to find someone. She said, does Joliet, Illinois mean anything to Bob? And she said, well, yeah, that was where he was born. And so she said, okay, I'll call back. And so that was it. And this was a strange phone call because we got a call earlier that week on the answering machine. We came home one Thursday, and there was a message, and all the message was just silence. And then some woman says, oh, I'll call back. So these two mysterious calls were, piquing our attention. And so on Sunday, the next day, and I remember this because Jabber and I had an online betting account. We had just set it up. We were just about to make our first bets. And the phone rang and kicked us off the internet. And on the other end of that phone line was my mom, whom I'd never met. I had no contact or any premise whatsoever of who she was. And in that moment, it's odd, but you wonder what that question would be that you asked. And I asked, what's our nationality? What's our background? Who are we? Who am I? Who is this meat sack here? And I did my DNA. I'll share that probably down the road a little bit. But I suddenly had this paradigm shifting moment in my life at 29 where I had contacted and made connection with my mom. There were a lot of things that happened in this time frame. And I'm going to talk about meeting my mother on the next video. But in this video, I want to finish up talking about Kitty and the campaign. Because part of that experience of working for Kitty and doing her campaign materials and such was just getting to know someone. And Kitty actually went on in 2012, I think, maybe 2014, I'll throw it up here again. She went on to be the Secretary of State, or excuse me, Secretary of State, excuse me. She went on to be the Secretary for the Department of Health and Human Services in Wisconsin, and was Scott Walker's person for that cabinet, which was really kind of cool because she ran her first campaign out of our house. I'll never forget some stories about Kitty, but one in particular. Wisconsin went through this phase where they made it illegal to smoke in state buildings, and then eventually they went on to make it illegal to smoke in restaurants. And Kitty was a smoker. And shortly after one of those bills had been passed, I went to visit her in her office down in Madison because I was down there for some work. And as I sat across from her at the desk, she opened the drawer, pulled out an ashtray, and lit a cigarette, which I thought was pretty bold, especially having just made it illegal to smoke in bars and restaurants. And a friend of mine had asked her, "What were you thinking?" And she said, "I didn't think they would enforce the thing." And of course, they're always going to enforce it. It's always a thing. Kitty was a great soul, and I wouldn't spend much more time talking about Kitty than this if she were still alive, but unfortunately, Kitty passed away a couple of years ago, and she died, I believe, of pneumonia. And she was quite young at the time. But she was also an incredible soul, and I'm very grateful for the time that I got to know her. And so during this transition, there you go. I worked at the Chamber of Commerce, and then after the election and the campaign and election were over, I actually had to go find another job. And so I began looking for work through the temp agencies, and I went down to Manpower, and I started working at Manpower. And I'm going to wrap Manpower into the story of GE in a video down the road. It was a great time to start growing who I was. We had moved out, we bought a house, I remodeled the house, and there was a lot going on. And I really appreciate your time this week for listening to the song and the story. And peace.